If you've got a smallholder in your life, or someone with an allotment, a big garden, or a keen cook, today's video is for you. Today's video is going to cover the sorts of gifts that we think are absolutely splendid for anyone who cooks and preserves food. Hello, welcome to English Country Life. Welcome to the living room for a change. My name's Hugh, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about gifts for smallholders, allotmenteers, keen gardeners, as we said, anybody really who grows their own food and might want to preserve it. It's not going to be a scary subject, I absolutely promise. We've done videos before that have covered things like the books we would recommend for those people who are setting out on a small holding journey, and they've proved very popular. So I thought this time, well, let's do some theme on this video. And honestly, food preserving is such an important point in our lives, in our journey for self-sufficiency. It allows us to eat healthily, it allows us to reduce costs, it allows us to make the most of the things we grow. And do you know what? It's great fun. It's great fun just to go out and pick some blackberries with your children and make some jars of jam. I think people really appreciate knowing where their food's coming from, and it's a great stuff to do. So today I'm going to cover all the kind of things that I wish people had given us when we started out on our small holding journey. There'll be something for every size of pocket and every size of kitchen. First sort of area that I'd like to talk to you a little bit about is bottling and jarring, and that could be anything from jam, water bath canning to pressure canning. There are so many gifts that you can give in this area, but I'm going to touch on just a few things that I think would almost always be welcome. And the first one is jars. Jars for canning particularly are not cheap, particularly in the UK, but mason jars like this are so useful. And honestly, I've been doing this kind of canning for 20 years now, and I would still be happy to receive more jars. If you're in the UK, Kilner is a great brand to go for. In the US, something like Ball, but good quality mason jars with lids in a pack, always going to be welcome. But don't just get mason jars. Clip top jars like these. These again are Kilner brand in the UK, good make. Le Parfait are another great make of clip top jars. They are so useful. We use lots of them for doing things like dried fruit, dried vegetables in. But they're also great just for putting our flour in when we bake, so that we're not constantly dealing with sort of ripped paper bags, etc. Honestly, you cannot have too many of those. Some other little things that will make life simpler. One of these. This is a canning funnel. They're not all equal. You want a shiny stainless steel one. I've had some that had non-stick on them and they always scratch, and the non-stick always comes off. Shiny stainless steel is always my go-to finish for catering stuff. This one is about £6 each, made by Kilner, available on Amazon, and I will put a link down below to all of these kind of gifts that I can find either in our Amazon store or elsewhere. A couple of other things that are well worth thinking about. One or more really large ladles. This one's 280ml and it is my go-to ladle when food preserving. I had a domestic one before that I thought would be adequate, but it was so small I would almost get like RSI from ladling stuff into jars if I was doing a big canning run. Even if I was just ladling out into plastic bags for freezing, it would take an age. A good sized kind of catering sized ladle is a fabulous addition to anyone's kitchen that does a lot of food work. Two other small things on this subject. This one, again, a small inexpensive item, but it's so useful. It's a canning rack. It sits in the bottom of your big saucepan, stops the jars being in immediate contact with the metal, but also helps you raise and lower them, and even hooks onto the side of a big saucepan to hold them out of the water. It makes the whole water bath canning process so much easier. And there's one last thing. If we're talking about all of that, I've covered it before and I'm going to say it again. The Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving. If someone was going to start homesteading and I wanted to get them the materials and help them gain the skills that they need, I would buy that book. I would buy some mason jars. I would buy a canning funnel and maybe even a set of canning tools and let them go to town. Honestly, it's like, you know, even at home you can be bottling tomatoes, you can be making your own sauces and preserving them. It is such a rewarding thing to do and a great, interesting, fun hobby as well. If there's a serious cook in your life, then this might be the present to think about getting. This is a food saver vacuum sealer. They are brilliant, particularly for people who freeze a lot. That's really where they come into their own. We came to these later in life, but we wouldn't be without one now. How do they work? Well, they come with rolls, and these rolls, they come in a variety of widths, are a double layer of plastic. They're sealed at the sides, and you can cut them to length in the device. It will then heat seal one end, so you get a custom sized plastic bag. Put whatever you're looking to preserve in that plastic bag, and then the food saver draws out all the air and seals the other end, creating a vacuum sealed item. It cuts right down on things like freezer burn. So if you're preserving a lot of your own meat or your own vegetables, really is a fantastic thing for those who tend towards freezing. Not a cheap item, but really something for people who take this kind of seriously and do a lot of it, and a gift to give if you're feeling very generous. This is not an instrument of torture. This is an apple peeler, corer and slicer. It does it all in one. Now that might sound like a gadget to you, right? I promise you it is not. If you've got, as we do, hundreds and hundreds of apples, and some of them you're going to bottle, and some of them you're going to freeze, and some of them you're going to dry, preparing them all for that takes a long time. And this, honestly, put an apple on the spikes, turn the handle, it does everything for you. They are such a good device and they're really inexpensive. And even for someone who's not into home preserving but has an apple tree and wants their kids to have fun and to eat apples, maybe put some more on their cereal or to have it as a snack, these things are fabulous. Heartily recommended. This next item's a weird one because it can be as expensive or relatively cheap as you want it to be. And it's a dehydrator. We love them. A lot of people think, well, what would you do with a dehydrator? Well, let me give you some examples of the things that we do. We produce our own dried fruit, lots and lots of things like apple rings and that kind of stuff. We make jerky, but we also do our own chili powder. We dry our own spices, garlic powder, onion powder, tomato powder is fabulous for thickening your bolognese or marinara sauces. They are incredibly versatile. They come into their own when you produce a lot of food yourself. If you're buying the food to put in them, I'm not sure there's much of an economic saving. But if you're growing a lot of apples that normally go to waste because you can't eat them all, they really, really do pay for themselves remarkably quickly. This one is a favourite of mine. This is our Excalibur 9 tray model, and they are not cheap to buy, but this one's probably 20 years old now and is still going strong. But, and it's an important but, there is nothing wrong with an economy model dehydrator. You can get decent ones for well under £50 that absolutely do the job and are perfectly fine. That's where we started. We still keep an economy dehydrator that goes with this one because sometimes we need to be running two at a time. So don't be frightened to buy one that costs 30, 40, £50 They're absolutely fine. And if people love them and use them for a few years and wear them out, that might be the time to upgrade to something like the Excalibur. But for most people, one of the smaller, more economical models is absolutely fine. This next thing might seem like a bit of nostalgia to you, but we use ours all the time, and it's a hand mincer. They are fabulous, fabulous things, almost timeless classics. And this is a modern interpretation of the old one. My mum had one made by Spong, which I've always thought was a great name for a company, and it's Spong, S-P-O-N-G. Cast iron construction, you know, kind of last a couple of ice ages. They were brilliant things, the Spong. And I remember my mum feeding chunks of beef in the top with me frantically cranking the handle away to produce mince for a cottage pie. Brilliant things. We use ours in a lot of different ways, but almost when we're doing any kind of home butchery, any trimmings get put to one side. We have a special stainless steel bowl for it. At the end of the session, all the trimmings get fed through the mincer, and those then get put through into vacuum packs in portions, and we use them for chilies and for spaghetti sauces and for homemade burgers, and they're wonderful. But even if you don't do much home butchery, things like after your roast lamb, all the leftovers go through this, and that's where you get proper shepherd's pie from. You know, you have the roast on the Sunday, you have the shepherd's pie on the Monday. You know, that, and honestly, I'm one of those guys who thinks the leftovers are often better than the main meal. Coupled up with a burger press, produce your homemade burgers, you know, really are still a relevant, useful bit of kit today. Things that I recommend: get one that has multiple blade sizes, so that you can produce coarse or fine material. Definitely get one that has a clamp at the bottom. Some of them come with a suction cup, but I find you have to put quite a lot of force when you're cranking the handle, and that can actually pull a suction cup loose. And the third thing is, I like stainless steel. It just is so much easier to clean up and keep hygienic. So those would be my 3 recommendations if you're going to get a hand mincer, and trust me, they really are useful. This next item has the unusual combination of being very inexpensive and highly recommended by professionals. And it's this. It's a Victorinox semi-flexible boning knife, and it was 2 different butchers recommended this to me, and I'm really glad I took their advice. It's what professionals use. You can spend a fortune on knives for your kitchen, but go in and ask your butcher what he uses, and I very much doubt he's sat there using a £200 knife. And this is constantly in our drawer. I keep it in its little case because it is so sharp, and I use it for everything from boning out a piece of meat to removing the rind from bacon when I'm making rindless bacon. A brilliant thing, and anyone who does a lot of cooking would be delighted to receive it. This item's a biggie. Now, there are 2 kinds of canning. There is water bath canning and there is pressure canning. For water bath canning, you really just need a big saucepan. And the one that I use is, I think, 23 litres in size. You really don't want anything much smaller than that. Certainly 20 litre plus size, good quality stainless steel catering saucepan is brilliant for water bath canning. And that in itself would be a very generous present. But for some foods, meats, low acid foods, you need to pressure can. And for pressure canning, you need a pressure canner. Now, people ask me, can I use a pressure cooker to pressure can? And honestly, that's a can of worms debate. People will tell you different things. The point in the UK is most pressure cookers aren't anywhere near big enough to do a decent sized canning run. In this canner, I can get 16 1-pint jars at a time when I'm pressure canning, but the process takes a couple of hours all in. So really, you don't want to be doing 1 jar at a time or 2 or 3 jars at a time. You want to do a decent number if you're going to do it. And again, if I've done a big batch of curry or chili, I can pressure can it in this, have it shelf stable for 3 or 4 years. Here's the thing. As far as I know, and please, if anybody knows different, come and correct me. You cannot buy a pressure canner in the UK. They're simply not available. But there is one place you can source them, and that's on eBay. And eBay has an international shipping program. And if you buy through that, it takes care of all the customs and import charges at the point of purchase. And you can buy them from America and have them shipped to the UK. That's how we got this one. This is the All-American brand, and I like this brand because it has no gaskets, no seals. It's a metal-to-metal seal, which means there's nothing to wear out. There's another brand called Presto, and honestly, they're fine too, and a little bit more affordable. None of them are going to be cheap. Stand on me. So this is the kind of present that perhaps several of you want to chip in on, and it's not an impulse present. This is the sort of present to buy for somebody who's already perhaps got a small holding, is already into food preserving in quite a big way and has always wanted one but somehow never managed to afford them. And honestly, the purchase was quite smooth through eBay. I didn't have any problems with it. Obviously at the moment exchange rates don't favour us, but we do get asked a lot where to get a pressure cook canner, and that is the place, through eBay on the international shipping program, and perhaps get a few relatives to come in together if you're going to buy it as a present. Well, to quote Julie Andrews, those are a few of my favourite things. And if I had to choose just a couple to say, you know, these just make great presents. Honestly, the apple peeler chorus slicer is just so much fun, and it's so inexpensive. And, you know, on a slightly more practical note, perhaps, any knife from the Victorinox kitchen range, honestly, any food type person, any keen chef would be really, really happy to receive. I'm going to put links to as many of the items as I can find links for down in the description. Most of them probably through our Amazon store, but there may well be others to other sources as well. And I'm going to ask a favour of you. Have you got one kitchen item that you would thoroughly recommend? If so, can you tell us in the comments what it is? And if you can link to it, even better. And that way we can build a bit of a resource for those of us who are baffled at Christmas. I'm going to try and do some more of these videos because, you know, we do seem to get a lot of questions on this topic, and I thought I might do one on clothes for smallholders, outdoor type people, and perhaps one on useful tools as well. But if there's a particular topic that you would like us to cover, please tell us in the comments what it is, and I will try and put together a video on that topic. If you've enjoyed today's video, if you could spare us 5 seconds, give us a thumbs up down below. And if you'd like to see everything we produce on smallholding self-sufficient living, tap on subscribe down there if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and hit the bell next to it. It's completely free, but you'll be notified every time we upload a new video. For today, thanks for watching. Come back and see us soon. Take care.